You are listening to Unfuck Your Mind with the real, raw, colorful, authentic, empowering, control profanity loving human Zach Liotis, soul activator, master key holder, and intergalactic elder. Zach loves to find lessons in adversity to advocate humanity one listener at a time. She also enjoys having fun along the way. Check her out at zachliotis.com to see what she's up to. But for now, let's pass it off to Zach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfuck Your Mind. I'm your host, Zach Liotis, and in today's podcast, we have Katy Chen Mazzara. She's a financial coach and money mentor who helps creative people stop worrying about money, erase their financial fears, and expand their abundance mindset and habits so they can spend more time living their best life. Katy understands how to balance dreaming and doing to create financial freedom. For the past 15 years, she has followed her passion producing and developing television and digital shows for ABC, NBC, PBS, E! Entertainment, VH1, Bravo, Travel Channel, Dreamworks, and many other networks and studios. In between gigs for fun, she read every personal finance book, magazine, and even stock prospectus she could get her hands on, and then went on to get certified as a financial and life coach. Prior to her career in television, Katy was an award-winning documentary and news anchor, reporter, writer, editor, and producer. She's a graduate of New York University. Welcome, Katy, to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Nice to meet you, too. And I feel like I was like, okay, so what other TV show station has she worked for? When I was reading that, I was like, oh, damn diggity, this is amazing.
Yeah, there's been a lot. For some reason, I haven't worked for CBS.
Well, you did some great work because at the end of the day, it says you're award-winning documentary. So you did a lot of documentaries, I take it.
Yes, yeah, I love it. I love documentaries. But they don't make a lot of money, for sure.
And it's so funny you say that because I met another woman that made documentaries, and she says, you know what? I actually barely made it by in life, and I thought there was something better for me. And it's so interesting because you just said the same thing, but you got into being a financial coach and money mentor. Let's talk about that because there's a lot of fears based around money, yet money has such a high vibrational frequency.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a form of energy, right? Like it's an exchange of energy, first of all. I mean, it's not really even real, right? Like we as humans put a value onto the currency, whether it's paper currency, whether it's credit cards or whatever you use, like we put that value onto it. So because of that, there's this exchange of energy that happens. And if you have negative energy that you're putting forth onto money, then that's what creates fighting and, it's just disagreements about it. And then also, if you notice, like whenever you borrow money from someone, all of a sudden there's this energetic tie between you and that person. And even if like they pay you back, like, in 3 months or whatever it is, there's that period of time when like the money, there's that tie that ties you together where you don't actually want to even see that person, and it could create like all kinds of negative energy between the two of you. It's just such an interesting thing to like really know and understand. And I think a lot of people worry about it, but the bigger picture for me is that it's like, it's just money. It really is. It's just something that we've created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I had to go through a lot of old beliefs and stories that I made up in my mind about money. Because I lost a lot of money, but then I made a lot of money, and then I lost money, and then I made money. And I never was like, why do you keep on going through a cycle? I said, because I have issues around money, obviously. And they're like, do you hate money? I'm like, no, I love money, but for some reason I love spending it too,
Yes.
or investing in things that I don't really need to invest in because I haven't done all my research on it. So I get what you mean by is just energy, because I just look at it as a meal. Another way to look at it is just like eating a good meal, and yes, the more money you have, the more that your life could, be a whole different way of living, but it's that belief system that we hold on to. So what are some beliefs that you help with your clients in order for them to be more aligned with really, how can I say this in a nice way? Earning what they're worth. It's not even that. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like their divine birthright is to be rich. So earning what you're worth does not even make sense to me.
But it does make sense in a way, because that's the number one thing that I work with on people. I mean, I think that most people feel deep down that they're not worth all the money that they want to be making, that there's something about it that's stopping them from really receiving the money, because there's a deservability factor that they're not taking in. They don't really truly feel like they deserve to have as much money as they really truly want. And that could be because of something in childhood. It could be because they saw their parents really working super hard for their money and being very tired at the end of the day, and coming home and saying like, no, I can't play with you right now because, I just had a really long day at work. And so, we take that in as kids as, oh, I don't really deserve that. I don't deserve enough play, and it takes a lot of hard work. And then there's something that makes you think, maybe I don't want that, because if it's going to make me not be as loving and giving as I want to be, then I will kind of deflect it away from myself. I want to not bring that into my being. And it's interesting because consciously you do want to bring it in, but deep down there's something that's blocking, and we really work on those beliefs and to see what's really blocking you from actually receiving the money. And then also times when our parents are saying things like, no, you can't buy this thing, we can't afford it, right? As kids, you don't understand that concept of we can't afford it. So what you really hear from them is that you don't deserve it. And so when you actually hear that, that's when you grow up into thinking, I don't really deserve to have as much money as I really want.
Wow, you just triggered something in my head just now as you said that. It was, as a child, my mom used to make our outfits, our skirts, our shirts, our dresses. Why? Because it was cheaper for her to buy fabric and sew than to go out and buy it, because she was always saving money, because she came from a village back home in Greece that they didn't really have much. And now that I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my God, that's why I really don't have that much value in clothes. Like, I really just don't care. That just literally came up to me as you were just speaking about that. And meanwhile, I was a shopaholic. I enjoyed shopping. I enjoyed spending money on shopping. And then something came over me. I think it was once I went through depression and I gave away all my clothes. I just gave everything away. I'm like, you know what? This is not who I am. I'm going to get rid of everything and I'm going to buy a new wardrobe. And I slowly did that. I bought a new wardrobe. But it's so funny because I don't look at many people will see what you look like on the outside. So what are they wearing? Is it name brands? Do they look at par? Do they spend a lot of money on their clothes? And I just don't really care about that. And it's so interesting because as much money as I invest in my clothes, I really don't care.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And that's another thing we work on with my clients is that, what do you really care about? What are your true values? And then really getting super, super clear about what your core values are in this life and how you want to show up in this life. Because once you're clear about that, then you start to spend on the things that you really do care about automatically. Like, I don't believe in just a budget, right? Because budgets don't really work. It's like a diet. You sustain it for a couple of months and then you're like, F this, I need to, I'm going to go out and spend whatever on whatever I want. However, if you're really, really super clear about what you value and how you want to be in this life, then you automatically shift into spending on what you value. And then all the stuff that you're like, I don't really care about that, then it goes away pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I love my clothes, but to me, it's not like the top priority type of a thing. Like, I love to look good. I love to feel comfortable, but it's not a big thing. And it's so funny that you mentioned the word budget, because everyone says to me, Zach, what's your budget? I'm like, I don't even know that word. I don't, because I feel that we're so abundant that why are we putting a budget on us?
Yes. That's what's so interesting, because it's the same idea as Dave Ramsey. You know, he's a pretty famous money guru, book author, whatever. And a lot of his stuff is very useful and practical. However, the idea of, like, he asks people to kind of take cash. Like, when you get a paycheck, you put it all into cash, and you put it into envelopes of, you know, how much you're going to pay for rent, how much you're going to pay for food for this month, how much you're going to pay for clothing, etc. Right? And then as soon as that money is gone, then it's gone. You know, so that you're, you know, try to train your mind into seeing things in categories and also not overspending, essentially. And I think it works up to a certain point, you know, and the point that I don't think it works is that it also creates this sort of lack mentality, right? Because, like, all of a sudden at the end of your month, when you're kind of low on the food budget, like, let's say your clothing budget, you didn't really spend a lot. You still have, like, let's say the $200 you allocated towards clothing, but then for your food budget, you only have $10 left. What's happening there? Are you going to not take money from your clothing budget, and because you only have $10 left in your envelope for food, you know, and then creates a lack, you know, a sense of lack of, like, I don't have enough. What am I going to do? Am I going to go and just spend, you know, buy myself a $2 hamburger at McDonald's because I don't, you know, I only have $10 left in my food budget?
Yeah.
To me, that's ridiculous.
And it's so funny that you said that, because as you were saying lack, I heard the word limitations. It creates limitations on how we get to, you know, direct our financial abundance on where it wants to go. Because now, as you said it, where am I going to go eat? So now, am I compromising my health because of that budget being lower? Or am I going to just say, you know, I really don't need any clothes this month. I'm going to take my money from there in order to feed my soul some nourishment.
Exactly.
So yeah, so many different types of limitations that we put ourselves on. So as a money coach, what are the top 3 limitations people put on themselves?
I think one is thinking that, you know, you're not worth it. You know, that's a huge limiting belief, right? Is that you're not worth having enough money that you know, as you want. And then I think number 2 is kind of lack of clarity and not wanting to really see what's happening. You know, in order to manifest more money, we have to be clear. We have to have clarity, right? It's the same thing as if you're trying to manifest whatever it is, right? Like a love into your life. Like, but what does that really mean? And when you're really unclear to the universe, it's like it doesn't, you know, the universe doesn't know what to give you.
Yeah.
You know, in the same way that if you're holding on to your money too tightly, right, and you're not spending anything, then it's also confusing. It's saying to the universe, like, I don't really know what to do with this money. That's why I'm holding on to it so tightly. So don't give me any more. Please don't give me any more, because I don't know exactly what to do with the money I even have. All I'm doing is holding on to it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful you said that, because it's true. I find when I was going through a rough time after losing everything and coming back up, I would spend money, but then I would see the person as they were giving me back. So I always make sure that I would create change to come back to me. So if it was like $10, I wouldn't give them my $10 bill. I'd give them a $20 bill. So as they're giving me change, I'd say money comes back to me tenfold.
I like that.
And so the more I was doing that, the more I was realizing how that was shifting the energy around me when it came to money. Like, I lost everything. I had to start from scratch. So that right there could put such a stick in the soil of, you're not good enough, you'll never have money, you just lost it all, everything. But then when I start doing that, because Spirit guided me through that, I was like, you know, and money comes back to me tenfold. It felt so empowering to know that what I'm spending is like me, like, I don't even want to say it, it's so tiny compared to what I was getting in return. So just basically tricking my mind. Did you go through money issues at all in your life? Is that what brought you here? Or was it the love of money?
Well, a little bit. I never went through a huge money issue point. I did have debts, you know, after college, especially. In college, everybody, you know, gets a lot of debt, college debts. And then I was offered a credit card when I was in school and didn't know what to do with it because I had never learned anything about money. And so came out of college with about $35,000 in student loan debts, and then about, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 in credit card debts. So I had to learn how to manage that. But the biggest breakthrough moment for me was when I started as a TV producer, as a freelance TV producer. The first time the show was over, it was like a big shock to me that, like, oh, now I have to take care of myself. Now I need to figure out what to do with my money and how am I going to last from this job, you know, from the time that I'm being laid off until the next TV show that I'm going to be on. You know, because as TV producers, we're not guaranteed a position. There's not a full-time staff position anywhere. Instead, you're sort of jumping from show to show to show, and you're marketing yourself in a way, you know, to each show and creating a network of people to actually to make sure that you're always working, right? And so during those times, you know, colleagues and everybody I worked with were like, well, how do you not worry? How do you not worry when you're not working? You know, and I said, well, I've kind of developed a system for myself to, you know, to make sure that I'm not worrying. And one of the things that I do is make sure that I have a huge emergency savings account. You know, because I always think that as a freelancer, as somebody who has their own business, or anybody who's not getting a paycheck every month, right? A regular paycheck, it's important to have that emergency savings so you can rely on it. It's for peace of mind, but it's also like very practical, and to know that you can always draw from that. You know, but even with people who have very stable jobs, like government jobs, for example, like recently the furloughs, right? Like people were not even, you know, they haven't been working, and then all of a sudden they're like, I don't know, I have to go to, you know, the food banks and get food, or, you know, some people were going into a shelter and all of these things, and which is, you know, horrible. And I just want everyone to know that, you know, like to this day and age, we're not guaranteed jobs, right? Like there's nothing that's guaranteeing us a set salary, and we should all rely on ourselves to really take care of ourselves and our money. And taking care of our money, that goes back to the whole energy thing, right? When you have a relationship with people, there's this energy, and there's this, you want to be able to take care of that relationship, right? See people, keep up with your promises, all of those things. In the same way, money is the same way. You have to really take care of your money, right? And not just, and keep things in balance a little bit, like spend some, save some, earn. All of those things kind of go into balance. And when you have that kind of energy with your money and that relationship with your money, then things are going to flow very easily for you.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember when I first got out of the dark spot, what I did was I looked at my money situation right from the beginning. Where do I stand right now? And that's a scary place, because that's your truth. Where do I stand right now? And then when I got clear on that, it was like magic happened. So do you help people through the whole process, right from, it's like a child crawling and then walking and then running. Do you help people through that money process as well?
Yes, absolutely. So we do both the practical, the spiritual, and the repatterning of your childhood beliefs.
Oh,
And
wow.
those three things like really change and shift you into, once you're done, you're very empowered with your money. You know where your money's going. And then also very practically, things are changing and shifting, mainly because I always say that money's of this earth too. Right? When we pass, we can't take it with us. So it's really important to not just have your vision boards and, you know, those kinds of things, because yes, like you should do those things. However, it's also important to do very practical work because money is earthly.
Yeah, and I like that you said that, because someone described me as spiritual and practical at the same time. And it's so true. I could be really woohoo, and I enjoy the woohoo stage of who I am because it cracks me up. I still think it's funny. I don't even know if I'm human sometimes, but the practical stuff, it's just like, oh, you want me to do that now? Oh, but what's the reason for that? There must be a reason why we have to do that, because I noticed that, you know, I always say this when I come down from my earthly landing, there's always a reason why spirit tells us to do steps for something to be achieved. Like you can't climb Mount Olympus in one day. Well, you probably can, because got halfway through there, but it got really rocky. But it's just a matter of saying, you know, I'm going to take this hill slowly and see where it's going to bring me rather than fall back down again. And then I need to climb back up to the top.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I always joke that when people ask me if I'm woo-woo, and I'm like, no, I'm just woo. I'm half woo and then half very practical and realistic.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. There was a question that came down to me for a sec. Let me just oh man, it was such a good question. That's why I should have written it down. But let's go into your practice right now, because a lot of people need this help around money. What would be the top 3 things that you would tell a new client when it comes to their money, some money education?
Well, one is to get clarity, is to find out exactly what's coming in, what's going out. I just see it on paper, you know. Not necessarily in a budget way, not in a way that it's like you're going to restrict yourself into different categories, you know, but to actually be able to see it, you know, and see it clearly. Because sometimes when people see this, they actually see where they're leaking too.
True. Okay.
And leaking in terms of leaking energy, and then leaking in terms of leaking money.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's why it's so important. That's the first step. And then the second step is we talk about faith and spirituality. And, you know, anybody who works with me has to know that I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. I believe that there's something greater than us, you know, and that's my main reason why I don't worry.
Yes.
You know? And I like one of my favorite quotes, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, it's from the Bible actually, and it's from Matthew 6, and it talks about how God takes care of the birds and the flowers and the trees. Why wouldn't he take care of you? And in the Bible literally says, do not worry.
Yes. Yeah, I know exactly which verse you're talking about too, because I've walked to that verse many times myself in the moments of my darkness.
Yes, it's my favorite verse of, you know, of all, because the more that you worry, this is from another coach, so I'm sort of paraphrasing, but she says that if you know, the longer your list of worries, that means the smaller your faith in God.
Amen.
And so that's the second part, is like, have faith that things are going to work out. You know, you're going to be able to move mountains when you have faith.
Oh yeah. And that mustard seed turns into a tree. So as long as you have that, little mustard seed, the world becomes so abundant around you. And that's why I tell people, unfuck 1% of your mind and watch your life change.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because I was sitting the other day just thinking about this podcast name because it came to me, Unfuck Your Mind, when I was in California. And someone told me to write a description as to what this podcast was about. And all I heard is unfuck 1% of your mind and watch your life change. And I thought, brilliant. How true, right? Even when it comes to your money game.
Yes.
Unscrew that 1%, recognize your worthiness, your divine birthright, have that faith, like you say, and then watch how it all is going to flow to you. And this is the question that I had, and you was going to come back down again. When your money game gets at par, how is everyone's life changed for them once their money game gets to par?
It's incredible. It changes everything. Like I had a client who actually said to me, I never thought that having a money coach would actually change my entire life, my relationships with people, how I show up in the world and knowing who I am. But that's what it does. Because money actually touches upon so many different things in our lives. And because it's a form of energy, it actually creates that, and so your relationships get better. People who come in the beginning and tell me about I used to have great credit until I met my husband or my wife, and in the beginning, all the blame is shifted to them, to the other person, right? But at the end of our time together, all of a sudden they're telling me stories about how incredible their partner is in their lives and how things have really shifted. They don't even have to say that it's shifted, but the way they're even talking about their partners, by the end, it's like a completely different shift, right? It's like they don't blame that person anymore for their money issues. Instead, they're seeing how the other person is contributing to their own well-being and to their happiness in terms of what they're creating together.
Yeah, and it's so true because I found the same with me when I went through that. I'll never. It's a huge process. It's crazy that money, that's why I say money has such a high vibrational frequency that we have such a low vibrational thought around it that it holds back so much more of who we are in all aspects of our life. And it's so incredible. And to have someone that could money mentor you, and this is not with the bank, obviously, this is someone that's going to give you woo and practical.
Yes.
And really guide you through this. Do you do investments as well? Do you help people go through an investment process as well?
Afterwards. I mean, it needs to be this 8-week process of coaching the kind of the basics and then also getting rid of their limiting beliefs and such before we can get into investments and such, because you really need to clear some things out before that part of things. Going back to what we were just talking about, though, what's interesting too is that when you can shift your thoughts around money, because money can also stop you, right? Like it can stop you from doing certain things, and it can create some fears around such things. I have an example of a client who was going into a custody. I mean, it's sort of a custody situation, right? And and he actually had to pay more. He was paying more money than what he really should have been paying. And we talked through it, and I encouraged him to really talk to his ex in a way that she would receive, which is perhaps she was feeling like you weren't spending enough time with your child, or perhaps, there was a feeling of the love is gone, and it's now all about money, or whatever it is, right? So really focus on what you want to focus on, which was he really wanted to spend more time with his child, and convey that to your ex, right? as much as possible. And so the next time he saw her, he actually told her this. He said, okay, so another hearing's coming up. They may decrease the amount of money I'm going to give, but I just want you to know that I really want to spend more time with our child. And that's my number one priority, more than anything. I want to still give as much as I can give, but just know that might be coming, right? And for the very first time, his ex actually didn't argue with him about it and wasn't really upset or mad. Instead, she was like, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
And it was huge for him, huge, because that shift was, incredible. Because before he would be scared of actually even bringing it up. And in fact, that was why he was paying more, because he was really afraid of bring anything money up into their conversation, because she would always get angry and upset with him. But as soon as he shifted the energy from the money into what his real goal was, which is to see his child more, then it all the fighting and arguing changed.
Interesting.
Yes.
And I love that you brought that up, because I deal with a lot of people that go through divorce. And it's so interesting, because as we go through it, they're like, I need to get a lawyer, I need to get this, I need to get that. And I said, whoa, let's stop on all that. Because at the end of the day, you don't really need that. That's a process that you believe you need to go through. Why not have this conversation with your former husband and say, this is how I feel that we should, proceed any which way you want. Because I don't feel that we need lawyers to get involved, which is going to cost us maybe $10,000 to $40,000 if we can't see eye to eye with things. But why not work through it together?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting you say that, because I've seen people go through battles, and these are none of my clients, thank God, because I'd be like, what are you doing? Go through battles when it comes to money. And it's like, I'm going to court to get more money. And it's like, what is really the ultimatum of why you want to go to court? Because there's an underlining situation there, exactly what you said. And it always revolves around money.
Yes.
Because money feels like it hurts more than anything else.
Right. Because it also creates fears.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting that you say this, because not too long ago, I do a lot of energy work, even when it comes to the dark energies and clearing people's energies. I'm going to say, I don't know why Spirit wants me to say this, but I'm just going to say it. And interesting enough, I had an old spiritual teacher that put some dark energy on me. And she went to block my money. So money flow not to come in. And when I realized this, I started laughing. And I said to myself, does she not realize that there's no fear around money? Like, I will figure this out. But why didn't she just go for my health? Because if I'm not healthy, there's a lot more issues there. But you're going for money, something that really, at the end of the day, is always flowing with the universe. And when I brought that up to one of my friends, they started laughing. They're like, only you would say something like that. But it comes around money, because people have this fear and belief and this lack around it, that it holds them so impoverished and imprisoned that they can't see the beauty around it.
Exactly. And it keeps them imprisoned too.
Yeah.
In their own minds. To think that like the whatever debts they're carrying, like the literal word for debt means to burden, right? Yeah. And so what burdens are you really carrying in your life? Instead of thinking about the debts in that way, it's like, what other things in your life feels like a burden to you? And most of the time what happens is you'll find that you're not really living in your purpose.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true. I had money. I didn't realize, but I was having money conversations with myself this morning as well. And I wake up early in the morning, and my meditation, it was like, I heard Spirit say to me, you were like not even 20 years old making $45 an hour. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. And, you know, and they brought me through this whole process. And as kids, we're such money magnets. Whatever it is, someone's going to give you something. But as we grow, we have placed our own fears around that money that, you know, even for a job raise, like to get a raise at your job, it's like, no, they won't give me a raise. Well, why wouldn't they give you a raise? Why are you putting that energy out there? Why not exude that? And I did that once. I was a flight attendant, and I remember I did one flight, and they were paying us like, we shouldn't even gone on that flight. That's how cheap they were paying us. But I was like, let me check this out. Let me do it. So I get on this flight, and I'm sitting with another flight attendant, and we just landed. And, you know, I calculated in my head how much work I did and what I was getting paid. I'm like, I'm exhausted. I'm only getting that much money. And you know what I mean? Like, I deserve more than that. And she says to me, well, you won't be able to get a raise for like 6 months, I hear. And I looked at her and I'm like, I'm getting a raise now, sister. I go to her. She goes, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go up to him and tell him I demand a raise. Like, I need a raise. And she goes, you're going to go up to him and say this. Like, our boss was huge. Like, he exuded, like, he almost looked gangsterish, right? And everyone was afraid of him. I didn't care. So I went up to him and I said his full name, first and last name. And he just looked at me like, who is this crackhead coming to me right now? I don't even know who she is. And he says, how can I help you? I said, I want a raise. I said, this is ridiculous. For the amount of work that I'm doing and the measly dollars that you're paying me, it's not even worth me to even get out of bed. He looked at me, and you know what he said? Give this girl a raise, and if we haven't done her paycheck for this week, put her raise on this paycheck.
Nice. Nice.
And that's what it's all about. It's really standing up to your money game.
Yep. Yep. Knowing what your value is.
Yeah.
And standing up for that.
Yeah. So sitting here and having this conversation is triggering so many different stories of getting into that money game that, you know what, like, thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much for the work that you do, because just having these conversations with myself today, I didn't even realize that I'm going to have this conversation in human form today. But I was having this conversation with myself today, and just like, yeah, we do need help around that on so many different levels. And even if we want to go from 5-figure to 6 figures, we need to release some sort of veils and masks. From 6 figures to 7 figures, there's more veils and masks, you know? And people think because you're a millionaire, you don't have a money issue or trauma or anything based around there, but then you want to get into a billionaire status and more issues come to the surface.
Oh, absolutely.
So thank you for the work that you do and helping people get in their money game, because I think it's extremely important.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love doing this work. It really, it's very healing, you know, and I love empowering other people with this, mainly because I've seen how it's been very devastating for certain people. I've had women in my lives, and then this is the main reason why I started this work, was because I've had 3 women in my life that were in very abusive relationships, and they never felt like they could get out of those relationships because they were not working and they didn't have their own money. So I never want anyone to feel this way. I want people to be empowered to have their own money and to make decisions from that empowered place, and not have to make decisions based on the fact that they think, well, I don't have any money, so I'd rather stay in this terrible situation I'm in.
Yeah. Well, I'm sad that they had to endure that, but I'm also happy that you witnessed that so that you could come to your purpose and help. Do you help men as well, or is it just women that you work with?
I've helped men as well.
Men and women? Yeah, I was going to say, I could feel men came out of my mouth. I'm like, let me ask her first before that. But thank you for the service that you do, because I believe the more that we connect to just our money, which is our inner self, our self-worth, our confidence, our power, like all that stuff, we are unstoppable. And I mean, the world is so abundant. And as you and I are sitting here having conversation, money is being printed. So it's so abundant, it's so fluid, and it's all out there. And I feel that if people became more curious and creative with life and aren't so stiff, I find the more stiff you are, the less that you have, you're in that lack, that money would flow with so much ease. Do you have any affirmations you give to any of your clients that you'd like to share?
Tons of affirmations, but I think one of my favorites is from Marianne Williamson, where she says, the next time someone tells you you can't do something, or that you're getting too big for your britches, say to them silently, I haven't even started yet.
I love that one.
It makes me laugh every time I think about it.
And it's so funny that you say this, because another girlfriend of mine was here last week, and I showed her something that I was doing. She goes, oh, girl. And I said, I'm just getting started.
Nice.
It was funny that you said that. And she said, oh, I could see you're getting started. I can't wait to see where this one's going.
Yes.
So thank you once again for all your wisdom, all your love around money and helping people come into their power when it comes to it. And I'm sure finding their purpose as well once they tap into that.
Yes.
So for anyone that feels that, you fully aligned with Katy and getting your money drama cleared up, the trauma, the beliefs, the imprints, the childhood, anything that comes to the surface, feeling that you are lacking and you need to raise that vibrational frequency, feeling aligned to Katy, all of her social handles are in the show notes just below. Get a hold of her and really work towards achieving the 5, 6, or 7-figure lifestyle that you truly deserve, because the world is abundant. There is nothing lacking, and there's just more of you that needs to shine in order for you to recognize your worthiness and your purpose here on earth. So thank you everyone for joining us on this amazing podcast of Wise Woman Wednesday, and we look forward to being back with us here next Wednesday. Bye for now, and remember to get into your money game. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Unfuck Your Mind. Head over to iTunes and leave your 5-star review and comment to get uprising the charts so we can get this incredible wisdom into more ears worldwide. In the show notes, you'll find all affiliate links to what we've mentioned in the podcast or products Zach loves to use. Until we connect again, unfuck 1% of your thoughts and watch how your life shifts.